like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Mrs. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers.
Here.
Mrs. Brockman.
Here.
Mrs. Hoskins.
Here.
Mr. Canwisher.
Here.
Mrs. Kunkel. Mrs. Rivera.
Here.
Dr. Wagley.
Here. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of agenda. Are there any questions regarding this evening's agenda? If not, I will take a motion.
Move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Mr. Ayers to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. Vision statement. It is the vision of the Pleasant Valley Community School District to provide the finest academic and extracurricular programs in the state. Not in some things, but in all things. Not for some students, but for all students. Welcome to all of our guests this evening. If you would like to address the board on a non-agenda item, now would be your opportunity to do so. All you have to do is come up to the podium and state your name and your capacity within the district, and you will be allowed 3 minutes to discuss what it is you want to talk about. If you do say something, just realize it's a non-agenda item. We will not be able to comment on it, but we certainly are listening. In addition, if you are going to make any comments, please refrain from naming any names just for confidentiality purposes. And with that, if there's anybody who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item, you can come up to the podium now.
Hello, my name is Kelly Smith, and I'm a parent and I'm a taxpayer in this district. It's been brought to my attention that the school district used taxpayer funds along with district resources during this last school board election. Now, that surprises me that you guys do this because you know people are going to find out about this. And this also includes teachers working during their contract hours on the school board election. It's documented. This isn't something I'm just up here saying. There's hard proof of this. It was physically brought to my attention. I have turned several documents over to the Scott County Attorney's Office, and as a taxpayer in this district, I do not intend to let this go. I also plan to seek my own legal counsel because my taxpayer dollars will not be used in that manner. I also have a question on the responsibilities and privileges that a board president has over other board members. I'm told that our current board president, and this is just me being told, I don't have hard documents like I do for this other issue, that our current board president has been privy to information that additional board members are not getting. That should not be the case. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we will go to board members. Ms. Brockman.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Ms. Rivera.
I have nothing, thank you.
Ms. Uncle.
I just wanted to say great job to the Sparkles team. They performed the kickoff weekend of Festival of Trees. They did a great dance and performance, and they had so much joy on their face, and it was great to see them stand up in front of a crowd and put that show on. So good job to them.
Thanks. Ms. Hoskins.
Nothing for me, thanks.
Mr. Ayers.
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Klingingsmith.
I have nothing.
Okay. Mr. Hyatt.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Kenyon.
I have nothing, thank you for asking.
Should I wait for you for the other Parliament meetings part and assembly? Ms. Mascaron, or do you have something separate?
I have several items
Okay.
tonight, but do we want to start with Spartan Assembly? or
Well,
wait
actually, why don't we
until a little
wait
bit
on
later?
that?
Okay.
So I'll wait for you to do all your recognition at the same time. So let me move on to Ms.
Okay,
Damon.
that sounds good.
Updated personnel agenda, and also there's a couple pieces of paper like this at your table. Those will be used when we vote for president and vice president.
Okay. Mr. Struce.
At this time, the only thing I would say is, as we have our organizational meeting this evening, at this time, we have a unique situation that we have a recount going on right now in Director District 6. So procedurally speaking, we will move forward with the canvas we had previously. It was certified, so we'll be seating Director 6, Jameson Smith, this evening, and then we'll continue to wait to see where the recount goes over the next day, next 2 days, or whatever that might be. So we'll continue to move forward with what was planned for this evening.
I'm going to go ahead and just, this week is American Education Week, so I'm just going to read a proclamation regarding American Education Week. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they custodians or teachers, bus drivers, or librarians, work diligently to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are community linchpins, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now, therefore, I, Nikhil Wagle, serving as president of the Pleasant Valley Board of Education, do hereby proclaim the observance of American Education Week. So thank you very much for listening to that. All right, going on with some more recognition, we're going to have Ms. Pressler do her recognition and then do Spartan Assembly as well.
Okay, so starting off, our students are continuing to perform at amazing levels at the state level and just across the region. First, want to recognize our Spartan cheer team, who took 4th place stunt team and 6th place cheer and dance. So congratulations to them. And then our Spartan drama department, we had over 40 students attend the Iowa Thespian Festival at UNI, and they performed for judges and earned the following placements and qualifiers. So we had 4 students who placed in the top 3 and received an Iowa Thespian Award. They will be recognized by name in the minutes. And then we had 2 National Thespian qualifiers. Ellie Hoon, solo musical theater, and then Kaylee McCaw, solo musical theater as well. So congratulations to those national qualifiers. We were excited to receive 2 SERA grants at the high school. This past week, we were notified. So SERA is the Scott County Regional Authority. We got one for our PV High School robotics program. And we received nearly $20,000 to fund the purchase of a new trailer, tool storage, and essential robot parts. So Jason Franzenberg was the person behind that grant and did a wonderful job of making his case, and those funds will be well used. The other grant we received, which we're equally excited about, is to revitalize the stage in our PV High School Theater. With new masonite flooring and also updated curtains. And the award of that grant was $15,000. And Christina Myatt, our Director of Theater and Speech, did a great job of putting that grant together as well. But in the back, you will notice we have several students joining us this evening from Spartan Assembly, and we wanted to recognize them this evening for a couple of different reasons. One, the hunger drive came to an end, and we're going to let them share about their successes here in a little bit. But I also wanted to recognize them for being awarded the Honor Council for the 2023 or 22-23 school year. So they were awarded the Honor Council last year, and they were recognized at a conference at Johnston High School several weeks ago for that, which was super exciting. But most recently, they had 6 weeks of collecting food and monetary donations, and they raised a total of 92,475 pounds of food. So if you want to come forward, and we'll have you go ahead and introduce yourself and what year you are at the high school. And then I know you had a little bit of something that you wanted to share with us as well. And Christy Carr is our Spartan Assembly advisor. She's done a fantastic job, and from the parade to the hunger drive to everything in between, the fall has been very busy for Mrs. Carr.
And Mr. Moore.
And Mr. Moore.
He's actually not here. He's not in this.
Okay, I'll go ahead introducing myself. I'm Bree Howell. I'm a senior and an executive member of the council.
I'm Elise Hyatt, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Michaela Bush, and I'm representative.
I'm Alejandra Rodriguez Santiago. I'm also representative.
I'm Ishika Desai, and I'm also representative.
Grant Jaquist, I'm a junior representative.
I'm Rapika Jaganesh. I'm a senior representative.
I'm Margil Sanchez Carmona. I'm a senior executive.
I'm Henry Ganaway. I'm a junior representative.
I'm Bennett Seidel, I'm a junior representative.
I'm Ava Neitzel. I'm a junior representative.
I'm Ella Sherrick. I'm a freshman representative.
I'm Ashika Gandra and I'm a freshman representative.
I'm Grace Danielson and I'm a freshman representative.
I'm Ben Allman and I'm a freshman representative.
I'm Charlie Gano and I'm a freshman.
I'm Sam Brockman and I'm a sophomore representative.
I have a little something to read. I'll set it here. Well, let's start off. Good evening, and thank you all for being here to celebrate our achievements during the Student Hunger Drive. First of all, from everyone here on Spartan Assembly, we would like to thank every single person in our district who has donated to the Student Hunger Drive. Pleasant Valley has had a long-standing success for the Student Hunger Drive. And it's thanks to the generosity of parents, students, and teachers, and community members that we are able to achieve great things every year. This year, we have reached a new record of donations for PV, with a grand total of 92,475 pounds. According to the Riverbend Food Bank, Pleasant Valley District brought in a total of 28% of the donations they received from all competing schools combined. This is one of the biggest accomplishments that Spartan Assembly has achieved, and we couldn't have done it without the help of some very important people who we would like to acknowledge. Our custodians and maintenance center, for providing us with so many boxes and pallets, and for assisting us on the loading process. Our elementary schools for collecting a total of 11,498 pounds across all 6 of the elementary schools, with a special shout out to Riverdale Heights for collecting the most, 3,903. The junior high school for making an outstanding effort this year in collecting 4,456 pounds. And we heard great things about the junior high participation throughout the month, and we were all very impressed with their efforts. Our own Pleasant Valley High School teachers for encouraging their students to donate to the Hunger Drive, bringing in their own donations and going out of their way to provide special incentives for their students to donate. Our administration, communications director, and school board for their constant and continued support throughout the Student Hunger Drive. The parents and students of PV who have donated their time, money, and who continue to show that the Pleasant Valley community is stronger when we work together. Lastly, we would like to thank the Riverbend Food Bank for organizing the Student Hunger Drive every year and for fighting food insecurity every day. The Student Hunger Drive is not only one of our favorite events here at Spartan Assembly, but it is arguably the most important one too. As we all know, food insecurity is a huge issue. Even if we can't see it or don't personally experience it, when we try to tackle world hunger, it seems like an impossible problem to solve. But the Student Hunger Drive reminds us that sometimes the best thing that we can do is, no matter how big or small, is do it together. Of course, nobody has to donate to the Student Hunger Drive, but we are extremely grateful for those who do, because it is going to a great cause. Once again, from everybody here at Spartan Assembly, we'd like to thank you for all of your support, and we hope to see you again next year at this time.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
One thing I do want to say, like Bree said, what really sets us apart, and I noticed it this year, was our community. It is a high school competition. You guys all know that, but our elementary schools and our junior high, it really sets us apart because we are the only school in the area that every school participates. So that's, you guys, like, that's one of the things that makes us achieve these high goals. So we are very fortunate in that. And so that, I just thought when we realized that we brought in more than a quarter of the food this year, how amazing that was for these guys. So kudos to them. And one other thing I do want to point out, Ishika Desai, she was elected as a state officer this year for the State of Iowa Student Councils. So we are very proud of her. For the next 2 years, she will serve on that committee representing Pleasant Valley. So that's a huge honor.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. So I know you guys do a lot of different fun events to get people involved in different reasons. What would you say it was your event that brought in the most bang for your buck?
I'm sure Ms. Carr will be very happy that you brought this up, but this summer we had the first annual pickleball tournament, which brought in a lot of our donations. We had great sponsors from the community come out and offer to have signs. They helped us with t-shirts that we sold, so that was the biggest event for sure.
We got over $8,000 in donations from the pickleball tournaments.
Wow, that's amazing.
Great.
We're gonna expand it. We're gonna add more age groups and a little more time because we actually had to turn people down this year.
And we're rebranding it. We're calling it the Car Pickleball Class.
Hey, it was fun. A couple of you guys played, other parents played.
So can you remind us what you raised last year compared to this year?
It was right around 86,000 pounds.
Okay.
Yes. So I was very worried this year. We were stressed, right? We were very stressed. Across the board, food is high right now. The cost of food is high. So when we went down to find out our final total, they told us they'd heard from all of the schools that donations were down. It wasn't that people weren't donating, they just weren't able to donate as much as they have in years past. That being said, we still did excellent, but a lot of the schools did not meet their goals from previous years. So, I mean, people were donating, and I don't want to take away, we go by pounds a lot, but every single one of our elementary schools filled at least one pallet, which is 50 boxes. So that's a lot of food, whether it weighs 1,000 pounds or 500 pounds, it doesn't matter in the end. That's 50 plus boxes of food. We have not done that before. This is the first year where every single school had at least a pallet and then we brought more home. So we really did improve. I just know there were some stressful moments where we're like, oh my gosh, we're not gonna get what we got last year. But we did. We raised more money this year and a little bit less food. People were donating more monetarily, less food-wise. But it all balances out. And I don't know if you guys know this, but you take the dollar amount. So we raised we wrote a check for $37,000. You multiply that by 1.5 pounds. That's where you get the pounds from. So $37,000 is huge. So we increased in money big time. I think we only wrote a check for $30,000 last year.
And I think it's important to point out that just because Pleasant Valley is a big school doesn't mean that, we raise the most food. It goes by enrollment per school, right? So it's not necessarily the total number raised. It's based on students per
student.
Yes.
And so, for instance, we increased, I don't want to say the exact number, but it was 80-something students was our enrollment increase from last year. And Bettendorf went down. So they're our closest competitor. And we had 30,000 pounds more food than them, but we still, in order to win, have to have at least 10,000 pounds more than them. So we really did go above and beyond this year. So, and I know it is a friendly competition and these guys really get into it and everything, but it's like you said, it is very hard when we're growing and other schools are not growing. So each year it gets harder and harder for us. Every year I turn in that number, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's 100 more people. So, and then the other schools are going down. So yes, it gets harder and harder every year.
Yeah, I would like to just point out that I love how you involve all the students. I mean, there's a great group up here that do a lot of work, but across the board, so many students get involved, like you mentioned, from the elementary to the junior high. And as advisors, I know you guys put in a lot of work. I know I've met Mrs. Carr going to Hy-Vee on a nightly basis to pick up boxes of food on her own. So, kudos to everyone for all your efforts and your efforts getting other students and schools involved.
From a hunger drive perspective, what would be the most interesting fact you learned about hunger in the Quad Cities and in our area? Because that's the main point, we're trying to combat that. Was there one particular fact that stands out when it comes to that in our
area? One thing that I would say is, I don't know the right percentage, it's been a while, but hearing how, I guess you can see how many kids in our classrooms that we don't know that are going through it. It's kind of scary and it kind of motivates us more, I feel like, because before we even get into it, we all learn the facts and we all have posters and we all print them out. But people aren't really knowledgeable about, what goes around in the community, and they have their own thoughts. So hearing that kids in our classroom might be going through it in a certain number, like the ratio, that kind of it is scary and it's a big motivator.
Well, great work to all of you, and yes, I know it was a bunch of work, but it really is going to a great cause, and I'm glad that you're rewarded for it.
I I do want to point out too, new this year, I think this is the first time in the past 6 years that we have won the Mission Challenge. And that was an essay written by Marhil Wigrian and Caitlin Chin, who could not be here tonight. And then they throw pictures up on a board for, and the Riverbend food, they kept that, but they put pictures of all of our different events. One thing that she wrote that really, or did Caitlin write that or Marhil? That part.
Caitlin wrote that part, yeah.
That really stuck out was that it's exactly what she said. Most of us here will never understand what it feels like to go through food insecurity, but this is what the Hunger Drive does for us. It gives us a little bit, we can help them, reach out to them, and it gives us a little bit of understanding and helping our coming together for a greater cause. So she did a very good job of writing that, and they read the essay out loud on that night. We always joke because we say we won't win the Mission Award because they don't usually award it to the school that wins, but this year they were pretty moved by her words. So she couldn't be here tonight, but it was a great essay that she wrote. That's a first for us.
Other questions? I have one. So at the beginning of the year, you guys come up with the goal, and I'm sure you all are excited about wanting to surpass what was done the year before. So at the very beginning, when you start the Student Hunger Drive, what goes through your minds when you have your first meeting about the Hunger Drive about how to try and surpass the goals from the year before?
Okay. I would say, what are our big motivators? So I would say one thing that really gets us going is like our big events like Powder Puff and all that stuff. So it would be like, how are we going to motivate people to do it again this year? Because it's year after year after year after year. And some people might get tired of it. We all know that. That's fine. So we have to like come up with new ways. Like, how are we going to get the community involved? Other ideas. Because this year we've done more events besides like Powder Puff and all that stuff. And so not only that, but when we're on our grocery shifts, how are we going to convince people to donate to us?
Well, it's, again, you continue to make us proud every single year with regards to the Student Hunger Food Drive, and another kudos for all the work and effort that all of you have done in making us proud to be in the Pleasant Valley District.
I'd say number one, just all of you take a deep breath, pat yourselves on the back. And I mean that, why I'm saying that pat yourself on the back is the amount of work that you guys put into this, the pickleball tournament before school even begins. And then you jump into homecoming. You're trying to do the big event for our community as well. And those are just huge undertakings for you guys. And number one, keeping your studies important in front of you as well. So again, very proud of the work that you do and the commitment. And I think the thing that makes me the most proud is you sit here and look at this group, how large you are. But you talk about many of you being freshmen, being involved with this as your junior high, and involving our elementary kids. You guys are being role models for the future kids coming up to keep this tradition going forward. And it's not about winning. That is why you should pat yourselves in the back and be proud of what you've done. And as Dr. Wiley just mentioned,
Okay, moving on. This 2 weeks ago was our IASB state convention. A couple of board members were able to go to the state convention along with Mr. Hyatt and Mr. Struce. So if you wanted to give us a little bit of an update on that, that would be wonderful. And Catherine was our delegate this year.
Yes, the delegate session went well. It was interesting to see the school districts come together across the state of Iowa to share common goals and focuses that impact all of our districts, and come together to vote to have some priorities to help our legislators in focusing on the issues that impact our schools. So that was great. There's always tons of good sessions to go to. I think two that stand out was one that was the keynote speaker during our lunch, and they talked about generations and how the generation you're born in impacts how you perceive things and think about things, and how that might impact the decisions you make. And that wasn't something I've ever really paid attention to. And there was, he really just touched on it, but it was something that I want to look into more because I thought that was very interesting. And then I also attended a session on executive sessions and open meetings. And one thing I've learned being on the school board is how challenging it is. There's so many things to pay attention to, from finance to different laws to rules to agendas to consent agendas and acronyms all over the place, and it gets to be a lot. And so this was helpful just to like really learn a little bit more about how those decisions get made when we go into those sessions and what rules there are to go into that. Yes, it was great. And thank you for the district for allowing us that opportunity to grow and learn, and Debbie for arranging all that for us too. It's a great opportunity, so thank you very much.
Yeah, so what I would add to that is I agree. The keynote speakers are always very good at the state convention, and you can always take away little tidbits that we can bring back here as we sit in meetings and think over different decisions that we need to make. I attended some sessions on strategic planning. There was a school district that shared their strategic plan and how they distribute it to their community, and we have all those resources to work from. I also attended one on finance as well as open meetings, and it's really interesting what you can pick up from other districts and the networking. In most of the breakout sessions, the speakers are typically from a school district in Iowa. So it's always nice to be able to steal some of their ideas and get some pointers on different ways to look at situations. So yeah, I would echo what Catherine said. Thank you for the opportunity to be there, and I look forward to the whole board being there next year.
Mr. Hyatt.
This was a first-time experience. I too am grateful and express gratitude for the learning that's there. I found Robbie Huthasing was very, he had a futuristic sense on culture and how our culture is changing our country and the implications that has for schools and school board operations, and I thought that was very helpful to get that different worldly perspective on that. Also, what Catherine said about Chuck Underwood, the generational study, two things that really stuck out to me from his presentation were, for the first time ever in history, we have 6 living generations. And the implications that has for us, and knowing where people are coming from, knowing values, knowing that those values are based on experience, and when and those experiences are based most notably in the formative years. That was eye-opening to me. Generational studies are really new. He talked about, this was the second point that stuck out to me from his presentation, was generational studies really did not start until the 1980s. And so we're learning a lot about generational studies, and it's important that we continue to forge. It made me, when bringing that learning home, it's important that we listen to all perspectives and we honor those perspectives, but we look futuristically to what we want the young people that were just before us to become. In the common footprint, that's something that makes me come back to our whole Committed to Excellence slogan. What do we want that common footprint to be? And it can't always be the exact same that it has been. There's an evolutionary process that comes. We have to be thinking for our kids in the future. And so those were two big things that stuck out to me. Also attended a breakout session on legal aspects, and just with all of the legislative changes that have occurred, lots of insight, lots of attention to detail. We're all learning in the state of Iowa. It's really important that we continue to embrace, trust, and do our best together.
Thank you. Mr. Struess?
Yeah, I kind of feed off what Mr. Hyde just mentioned was about, helping our kids for the future. And one of the ones I attended was, why are fewer high school graduates pursuing higher education? This was put on by the Department of Education. When you look at reasons why, number one, you're looking at career academies that we offer or certificate programs that we offer. what are different things that kids can pursue besides potentially maybe a 4-year college experience or university experience, but they're looking at maybe the 2-year programs or the trades, right out apprenticeships that take place. And what was nice about going to this one was just looking at what are we doing currently to help our kids in the apprenticeships, or what does life look like, and make sure we're opening doors for all kids and providing opportunities for all kids in each of those areas. So it reaffirms some of the things that we're doing there, and that Bernie's now working with our apprenticeships in the community. The other one I went to was called From Schoolhouse to State House, and just looking at legislators and kind of where we are at with what they believe are going to be topics coming up in the next session for education. And they mentioned early literacy, preschool, AEAs, and teacher salaries would be the 4 areas that they believe will be potential topics that they will talk about when they first go into session. So again, hearing that perspective to see what that will look like from a day on the Hill or different conversations we have with the legislators, good to know that information.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for giving us the update, and thank you. We also, as you've mentioned, people have mentioned already, thank the district for allowing us to go to that whenever we can, because it is really instructional to what districts are doing and keeping up to date on school board items. So thanks again. Okay, before we do one last thing, which is a consent agenda, which I will need approval on, we are going to, that'll be the last item that some of our board members will be voting on. And so this is the time to just sort of give some appreciation and recognition of the public service rendered by our retiring board members, Jody Hoskins and who right now is in a recount situation. Just wanted to say to both of you, I'll start with you, Tracy. It's been a wonderful that you've given so far on the district, especially regarding your perspective and having hands in several of the districts around us, and also just giving a teacher perspective. And I think that that's really, really important. And you really made some really nice awareness to the board on the comments that you've made. So we really appreciate that. Thank you. And then Ms. Hoskins, you and I have served on the board for a long time together, and I will say that you served as vice president as well for several years. You have served your community so well and your constituency so well, and you need to be very proud of all the work that you've done and the devotion you've given to this district, and we are truly grateful for everything you've done for us, and you will be sorely missed here. Excited to have Ms. Wheeler come on board to take your spot. I know that you have left a legacy here, and we appreciate it. Would you guys like to say anything, either of you?
The only thing that I would say is I've been really lucky to sit at this board table with all of you, and I am extremely proud of the work that we've done over the last 8 years, and I can't wait to support all the great work that I know you're going to continue to do. So thank you.
This last year has been amazing. We'll see what happens, but I would say that I've been honored to learn a lot of things from you guys, and I know that everything that you guys do has been from the heart and has been true and honest, and there's a lot of negativity that gets thrown around by a few, but continue to keep doing the good things and the good fight, and this district has nothing to worry about.
Are there any other board members or anybody else who wants to say anything to either Ms. Rivera or Ms. Hoskins?
I would just say to both of you, thank you. The time, the commitment, I think, Director Kunkel, you mentioned it very well. You know, what goes into being a board member is there's a lot of work, a lot of information that's being taken place. You know, whether it's policies, procedures, to budgets, whatever decisions we are making, you both have had an impact there. You know, in the last year, the last 8 years, just think about the number of decisions that have been made for kids over that time span. And in 8 years, that is a legacy to be proud of. You can drive around this district and see things that you have impacted, whether it's a building, to education, to kids who are graduating. And I can't thank you enough for your commitment to our district, to our kids, to our parents, to our staff, and to our constituents. You both have served as great board members for us, and I could not be any more proud as well. It's been an honor working with both of you, and wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and feel free to join us at board meetings anytime. So, thank you. Thank you.
order of business is, are there any questions on this evening's consent agenda? If not, I will take a motion.
Move the board to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Harris, second by Ms. Kunkel to approve this evening's consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so now we're going to adjourn the retired Board of Education. And so, and once that is done, we are going to seat the new Board of Education. All right, if we can have Ms. Wheeler and Mr. Smith please come up. And Mr. Smith, why don't you sit over there? And Ms. Wheeler over here.
Your purse, Tracy.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Ms. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers?
Here.
Mrs. Bachman?
Here.
Mr. Canwisher?
Here.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Here.
Dr. Wagley?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Wheeler?
Thank you. All right, now we're going to administer the oath of office to the new and re-elected board members. Ms. Stamen, you are going to do that.
Nikhil Wagley, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duty of the office of Pleasant Valley Community School District Board Director, Director District 3, as now and hereafter required by law?
Thank you very much.
Go ahead. Do them in order.
She was coming to me.
Molly Brockman, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Pleasant Valley Community School District Board Director, Director District 4, as now and hereafter required by law? Thank you. Adrian Wheeler, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Pleasant Valley Community School District Board Director, Director District 5, as now and hereafter required by law? Jameson Smith, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Pleasant Valley Community School District Board Director, Director District 6, as now and hereafter required by law?
So now, since we have a new board, and on an annual basis, we have the election of officers of president and vice president. So you all have a piece of paper here. What you need to do is write down, we're gonna do election of president first, then we'll do election of vice president. And so you need to write down who you want to be president, and then you have to sign your name after the person who you want to be president, so that we know that it's your ballot. And then once you have it written, it will be collected by usually Mr. Pickett, doesn't it? And then Debbie will read them out loud as soon as we are done. So we're doing president first. And so go ahead, Ms.
And so
David.
first of all, we will ask Mr. Kenwisher, who is attending virtually, for the name of the person he wishes to vote for.
As Director of District 7, I vote for Director Wagley.
Thank you.
Director Ayers votes for Dr. Wagley as board president. Having a little trouble with the handwriting. Director Wheeler votes for Dr. Wagley as president. Director Smith votes for Ms. Kunkel as president. Ms. Brockman votes for Dr. Wagley as president. Ms. Kunkel votes for Dr. Wagley as president. And Dr. Wagley votes for Dr. Wagley as president.
So 6 votes for Dr. Wagley. So I will swear you in. I need to get the right one.
Do you want to do vice president first?
Yeah, okay.
That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, we'll do. Let me swear him in, okay.
Swear first. Okay.
All right. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of President, Board of Education in Pleasant Valley Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
Thank you. Now we will vote for vice president. So it's the same thing on putting the name down first of who you want to be vice president, and then signing your name to the ballot.
Mr. Canwisher, for whom you wish to vote for vice president?
As Director District 7, I cast my vote for Director Brockman.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Brockman votes for herself, Ms. Brockman, as vice president. Mr. Smith votes for Ms. Brockman as vice president. Ms. Kunkel votes for Ms. Brockman as vice president. Dr. Wagley votes for Ms. Brockman as vice president. Ms. Wheeler votes for Ms. Brockman as vice president. And Mr. Ayers votes for Ms. Brockman as vice president.
And that's it.
Ms. Brockman is our vice president.
So. I will go ahead. Ms. Brockman, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Vice President, Board of Education in Pleasant Valley Community School District as now and hereafter required by law? Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now, Ms. Damon is our board secretary, so you will need to be also sworn in as secretary for this year. Ms. Damon, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Secretary, Board of Education in Pleasant Valley Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
I will.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Okay. So now that we have the new officers that are elected and have been sworn in. Yeah, so Ms. Damon, you are going to, this next week, or I think tomorrow, you will swear in Ms. Kelly Hattler, who is appointed as treasurer for the district, and you will do that tomorrow. Okay. We do have some information in our board packet regarding the annual meeting. And so you can read through that. It just talks about who our lawyer is going to be, which is going to be Landon Waterman. Quad City Times is our official publication for the newspaper, and a couple of other housekeeping items. So after you've read the annual meeting under 8, I just need an all in favor of the annual meeting information there. So all in favor of that information, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so now we will go on to approval of bills. So we will start with general fund.
I move that general fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $363,847.77 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Brockman, second by Mr. Ayers, that the general fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, nutrition fund.
I move that nutrition fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $67,202.76 in payment of invoices presented.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Kunkel, that the nutrition fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Elementary junior high activity fund.
I move the elementary junior high activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $6,886.93 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Ms. Brockman, that the elementary junior high activity fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? High school activity fund.
I move that the high school activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $65,950.48 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the high school activity fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The management fund.
I move that management fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $400 in payment of invoices presented.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Kunkel, that the management fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Capital projects fund.
I move that capital project fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $663,522.64 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Brockman, second by Mr. Ayers, that the capital projects fund warrants be issued and payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The PEPAL, or Physical Plant and Equipment Levy Fund.
I move the PEPAL fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $229,503.47 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Mr. Ayers, that the PEPAL fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Debt Service Fund.
I move that the debt service fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $155,700 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the debt service fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Internal Service Fund.
I move that internal service fund warrants 6564 to 6565 be issued in the total amount of $8,779.72 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Brockman, second by Mr. Ayers, that the internal service fund warrants 6564 to 6565 be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Trust Fund.
I move the trust fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $2,895.82 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Kunkel, that the trust fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay, moving on to old business. Board Policy Update 603.13 to 603.13R. And that's regarding appropriate internet use. Mr. Struess.
Yes. Ms. Wheeler and Mr. Smith, you guys both have all the packet information there. I think that she just gave you and handed it out. So it would be in there, and it would be, this is for the internet appropriate use. There's a packet there, probably a gray sheets that would identify the policy that we had looked at last time. So those are there as well. With internet appropriate use, remember Mr. Pennencamp came last time, our Director of Technology, shared this with us that in order to continue to look at E-rates, we had to update our internet policy to continue to move forward with that. E-rate is what we use to receive funds back when we do technology projects across the district. Remember that we pay 60%, we get 40% of that back. So as he went through this last time, just again updates just from IASB and what they recommend that we should have in our policy. The thing that would be a little bit different is in that third paragraph where it says beginning in grade 4, we now have kindergarten because we have iPads for students in that grade level. So a little bit different that we had to look at there. The other red would be the things that come to us directly from IASB, and the crossouts would be similar things that IASB had, but we just used their verbiage that you see in red. So again, not a lot of changes, just information that we need to make sure we update it so we can continue to apply for E-rate funding for our future projects.
Are there any questions regarding the internet appropriate use series 600, 603.13 or 603.13R?
I do not.
If not, then I will take a motion to approve it.
I move that the board approve updates to board policy 603.13 and 603.13R as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Mr. Ayers, that the board approve updates to board policy 603.13 and 603.13R as presented. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Damon.
Mr. Ayers.
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman.
Yes.
Mr. Canwisher.
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel.
Yes.
Dr. Wagley.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Wheeler.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to board policy review for the Department of Education. And this is again in preparation for the Department of Education desk audit. We have to review certain board policies. And so we are going to be going through the first reading of policies 401, 406, and 501.1. We went through that already, so this is going to be the second reading.
Correct. Dr. Waggy summarized that correctly. So each year we have our desk audit, which is coming up here December 1st, and we report to the state of Iowa. there are certain board policies that they want us to submit each year. This year, you can see the ones that are being asked and some changes that we made for this submittal. They are, again, policies that we currently have. 401 that we currently had was called selection and appointment. The state has now called it licensed employee qualification, recruitment, and selection. And it just goes through and talks about in the first part there and the bullet points about what we look for when we hire staff. The second paragraph talks about iowaworks.gov, which is the new site that we use for posting and applications of our employees, which is new this last year instead of Teach Iowa. And then the third paragraph is just a new one that they have in terms of recommendations to the board for our positions and what that looks like for our teachers. So again, nothing new in terms of a policy for us, just updates to our current policy that we have. The next one that you have, if you turn to 406, again, this one before was called evaluation criteria for certified employees. Going through, because it's licensed employee evaluation. Again, very, very similar to what we had previously. The 8 black points, the bullet points that you have there are the ones that we have already for our standards, the 8 standards, so that is nothing new. The first part just is kind of a summary statement from what we had previously, but we just again chose IASB's verbiage on that one there. The last one that we had to make changes to or updates to would be the attendance requirements. And this one here, we just basically took all of IASB's recommendation because ours was shorter previously and really just talked about under the age of 16, making sure that they were following the attendance, compulsory attendance period. This one just goes through and explains compulsory in the first paragraph. The bullet points talk about exemptions of when someone would not be considered truancy or missing the 180 days or 1,080 hours. It just explains those exemptions. And then the last part just talks about if a student was hitting those truancy points, how the building principal works with their SRO. And if the plan does not work, then our SRO would turn over to our county attorney and put a plan in place in that regard. So it just walks through the process of what's required for compulsory attendance of a student. So again, just a more updated version of what we had coming from IASB and the policy that we used there. So we just selected theirs.
But again, this doesn't really change what we're currently doing with regards to attendance and notifying parents when kids are not in school, those sorts of things.
No, and last time we talked about, we still have the 6, 9, 15 letters that we send home as early points and meetings along the way to try to make sure students are not getting to that point of compulsory attendance truancy.
Are there any questions on the second reading for these policies? If not, then I will take a motion on that as well.
I move the board approve the updates to board policy 401, 406, and 501.1 as presented.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Kunkel, that the board approve updates to board policy 401, 406, and 501.1 as presented. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Damon.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wagley?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Wheeler? Yes.
Okay, moving on to new business, project search, Ms. Kenyon.
Yes, so I get the pleasure this evening of introducing Stacy Kenty. Did I say it right? Yes. Good. Been working on that one. Who is in charge of project search. And we're all just really excited to hear more information about the program and some great things that are happening for our students here in Pleasant Valley.
I'm excited to share. I'm going to move this direction so that I have fewer people on my side. I am Stacy Kenty. I'm the instructor and coordinator for the Project Search program at Unity Point Health Trinity. They've been our partner for 8 years. This is our 8th year. We have graduated over 40 interns, and we are a cohort. I can click it. There. We are a cohort from PV, North Scott, and Bettendorf. I'm an employee of North Scott School District, but we work cooperatively through a steering committee. And we have representatives from all 3 school districts and our other partners, Voc Rehab, the Mississippi Bend AEA, and of course, the hospital. And we work with Michelle's Vocational Placement for additional job coaching and job development in the community. There are more than 700 programs in all 48 states for Project Search. We also are in 10 other countries. It's a very wide reaching program throughout the entire world. And what's really crazy is so very few people know about it in our community. And we've been here for 8 years. Davenport has a program. They modeled after us and developed a program the year after, so they've been here for 7 years. Clinton has a program. They started the same year as us. And Muscatine, former teacher Andrew Ward, who worked for PV, is the instructor at the Muscatine Trinity Hospital. So we have 4 Project Search programs in eastern Iowa, and it is the goal of Unity Point Health Trinity, actually Unity Point Health as an umbrella, and our organization-wide, it is our diversity, equity, and inclusion officers' goal to have a Project Search program in every Unity Point hospital, organization-wide. The program consists of a 9-month program, consists of classroom instruction, followed by intensive daily work and training in the hospital. So what happens is in January, we start interviewing current high school seniors or 4th-year students to be in a 5th-year program. Their IEP continues. The family and the students choose to stay on that IEP for an additional year. It is a team meeting, it is a team decision, and they work with us throughout the year to learn and grow and gain knowledge about the program. In January, February, we start taking those applications. They do apply for the program, even though it is an IEP decision to do that. They still have to go through the application process. They then are interviewed in March. We select who we're going to interview. We interview in March and we make a selection from that point, from those interviews. There is a chance that a student would not be selected because the team, the steering committee, and the interviewing committee feel that perhaps it is not the best fit. But a great deal of vetting goes into that process in order to select our interns for the program. Because it is a very intense program. It is 9 months of intensive instruction to build those skills to be able to transition to the workplace and have a successful outcome. A successful outcome in the terms of Project Search is working 16 or more hours in the community, working alongside other coworkers who may or may not have a disability. It could be seasonal work, we prefer not. But if it's seasonal work and they're invited back the following summer, we count that as a successful outcome. Or so, like right now, we're looking at Christmas work, and if they got invited to come back for that, we would consider that a successful outcome. We want a fully integrated setting, working alongside non-disabled peers. We want to earn the same wage as everybody else who's doing the same job as us. So many people think of, the incentives or the days of when people with disabilities often earn less than people working right alongside of them. We won't settle for that. The government will accept, in their statistics for successful work placement, their STARK, their 27% placement, includes people who go out and work in the community for an hour. The government programs will not, such as Voc Rehab, will not support any a lot of us would recognize as workshop work. They don't support that anymore, so that does not count there. But working for an hour in the community, not making the commensurate wage of their peers, those all count towards that meager 27% of an outcome for anyone with a disability. Whereas Project Search says, no, that's not good enough. You have to work 16 hours a week. You have to earn that commensurate wage and work along typical peers. And you have to be in the community. And you have to continue to improve and have that opportunity to advance in your field. With those stringent criteria that we have to meet for our outcome, Project Search as a whole continues to be above 70% placement of all graduates. We ride right now, we're between 78 and 85, depending, and we track all the way back. So we track all of our interns for as long as I'm around. Project Search has us tracked for 2 to 3 years usually, but we keep track of and we keep in communication with all of our interns who have graduated. So we know who's working and who's not working. And depending on what time of year, 78 to 85% of all of our graduates are in employment that meets that criteria. Our number one priority for training is jobs. We train, we train, we train. We're working today, we're training today for jobs tomorrow. That's what we tell our interns on a regular basis. Our program consists of me, the instructor. We have 2 full-time job skills trainers who are employed by North Scott. And they work with me on a daily basis to develop the internships that we have throughout the hospital. We work with anywhere from 12 to 18 different departments at Bettendorf, Moline, and Rock Island, depending on which internship part of the year we are in. We work in trimesters. So we just finished our fall rotation. The interns will begin their winter rotation on December 4th, and then we will begin our spring rotation in March. So it rotates throughout the year, the 9 months. They spend about 2.5 to 3 months, 50 days in each department. 1 school year, up to 12 interns with a variety of intellectual and developmental disabilities. It can range from students with an intellectual disability to a student with a social and emotional issue that might become a barrier to employment. We're looking at those barriers to employment and how we can overcome them and continue on to have a successful outcome of employment. Certified teacher, job skills trainer, immersed in the host business culture. All of our interns must be onboarded fully through Trinity in order to participate in our program. So they go through the same exact onboarding process that a Trinity employee does. And I train them and teach them all of the orientation material, and they're fully immersed in the culture. We follow our focus values every day. It is a very, we'll hit this hard, it is a very strong commitment from the parents. Parents of children with disabilities who carry an IEP are used to that annual review. They're used to that 3-year reevaluation. We meet 6 times a year, and they're not IEP meetings. They are highly invested stakeholders at the table, employment planning meetings. We need to build towards that outcome. We're always looking at how are we going to place our intern in the job that will give them the best opportunity for a successful outcome. What can we do? Like I said, parents have a lot of commitment. They are responsible for home skills checklists, as there are a lot of things I can't do at the hospital, so the parents are responsible for doing those things at home. And they make these commitments in the IEP meetings that lead up to joining Project Search as a fifth year student. This is what our day looks like, August through May, 7:45 to 2:30 p.m. We start with an hour of training in the morning, and we have a very, very strict curriculum from Project Search that is vetted across the country by the federal government and by vocational rehabs through all 48 states that use Project Search. Is employability skills and training, and then they go out to their internship sites. Now, these are interns that work approximately 1, 2, 3 hours a week prior to coming to Project Search. When they're with us, we work up to working 5 hours a day. So by the time they finish a rotation, they are fully immersed in 25 hours a week of work. So it's not so much to ask to go to work for 16 hours a week. And then they come back to the room, we do a reflection and goals, and we go through our evaluations. They are constantly being evaluated. We're always taking data documenting that and pushing that data through to the school districts, through their IEPs, and to Project Search through our portal that we use with them. These are the points these have been researched through multiple universities. Project Search works very closely with Notre Dame, works very closely with Ball State, and they're constantly reworking all of these points so that they're staying on the hot topics, on what is important in the workplace, and how we should be teaching our interns so that they are prepared to go into the workforce. These are the programs that we have running right now with our departments. We're not ever looking for the easiest jobs. We want complex and systematic work. If it's complex and it's systematic and it's routine, I can break it down through task analysis and then teach it step by step, and we can do the whole job. We don't want easy jobs. We want things that we can learn and build on. We want to be able to walk into Med 1 and Surge 3, Floor 1 and Floor 3 stocking, and be able to start understanding an inventory sheet. We live in the Quad Cities. When you take that 5,000 meter look at what we have here, we are on Interstate 80. We are on the Mississippi River. The majority of the jobs that are available that are highly complex and systematic, they are warehouse jobs. Entry-level warehouse jobs require that you understand a pick sheet, you understand inventory, you understand how to use a gun, scanning gun, not that kind of gun, a scanning gun. And you're able to walk in and understand that lingo, understand what it means to, what is par for this product. We teach all of those pieces. Like I said, we're looking at distribution centers in our area, retail, healthcare, supply chain in any business. Those are big skills that we're teaching. That's not the only skill that we're teaching, but it's a high demand in our area. We work to meet the outcome choice of the intern. You tell me that you want to work in a medical field, want to work around medicine, we're going to find a job that fits you in that area. You want to work in retail, we're going to work with various retailers throughout the area on our business advisory committee, which are business members in the community that work with us year-round to support those outcomes for our interns. Like I said, we're constantly evaluating. We have checklist after checklist after checklist. We're constantly reevaluating. Right now, like I said, we run anywhere from 78 to 84%. Not all of our interns have graduated. We sometimes don't make it through the whole year for whatever that personal issue may be, and we have standards we have to uphold through the hospital. We work very hard. We provide support. We provide therapy. We provide whatever it is that's needed to support them in any way. But there have been times when we've had interns who have not been well suited to the program, no matter how well they were vetted. I'm not going to watch Stacy talk anymore. There we go. And that's it. Questions?
Stacey, can you share with us how many, because you said 12 students at most are be the part of the program, but you don't always have 12.
No.
And then also, how many students how do you select students from each school district, and what does that look like?
We work very closely with, for instance, I work with Melissa Dockery at PV High School, and she is the TAP coordinator. So she works with the students who are gaining some basic work experience opportunities. I work with Justin Lauer and Jeff Welton at Bettendorf, and I work with Leah Kurth at North Scott. We work very closely. We're in constant contact. Weekly, they bring interns in, or prospective interns in for visits, for job shadow days, to kind of just stay and see if we get a feel for what they're capable of learning in that setting, if they're the right kind of fit. There's no set number per school. Does that make sense? Because things change year by year. The number 12 comes from our contract with Voc Rehab. They would like to see us have at least 12 so that Voc Rehab's return on investment is met. However, there's no controlling that. We've had a year where we had 6. One of our students moved to Overland Park, Kansas, and then we were at 5. We kept all 5 for the whole year. This year we are at 8, and I don't see any reason why we won't end with 8 and have 8 graduates. There is one project search program that started with 12 and now they're at 11 in Eastern Iowa. It just varies. Last year we had 0 Bettendorf interns. It ranges each year. It really does. So we have 1 North Scott, 4 Bettendorf, and 3 PBs. It's hard for me. I have to stop and think because now they're all project search interns. They meld together very, very well.
Other questions from the board?
I want to thank you for sharing it. It's such important work, both for those students to gain meaningful employment. It helps them develop independence and social language skills. It helps the parents to see their children grow up and be successful and become more independent, but it also helps the people that work in that environment with them to see what oftentimes is perceived as weaknesses, how strengths they do have. So it's really valuable work, and I'm appreciative of the work you do with that. I know it's difficult, and so I was just wondering, what is the biggest challenge that you faced when trying to get this program to run successfully? What's a hurdle that makes it difficult from to get to point A to point B?
This is my 32nd year in special education. This program, and I say this in the video, this program validates all of that time. Because it's not the difficulties of making it successful, it's keeping up with these guys. They are so driven to do well. And that is, as an educator, it's so amazing. I walk into work every day and I am as pumped as I can be because they're going to meet me there and go farther. I think the greatest challenge is keeping up with them because they go, the learning curve, the parents of our graduates will tell you, and they tell the incoming parents, be ready. The learning curve is so sharp and the growth is immense and very quick. They see their kids doing things that they never imagined, and sometimes letting go of those stands is kind of hard, but they love it. And I would say the greatest challenge for me every day is keeping up with them because they are ready to go every day.
Stacy, I've only gotten to observe a couple times, but I would just say, whoa, you do not lower those expectations. They are high and you have expectations for them. I was a little nervous even when I came in, like, what do I do now? Do I put my phone away? Like, they come in and they're expected. You really do a great job preparing them for what it's going to be like, right? Like with a really strict boss. And
I am that strict boss.
You have mastered that. I could feel that from the first time I went in and I was like, I'm nervous. What do I have to do? So you do a great job with them.
And we meet them with a lot of love.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Christy and Teresa, who are my job skills trainers, will tell you that it is the most fulfilling job that they've ever had, and it is the most challenging at the same time. They love every minute of it, and they love all the interns. And the greatest part is they're such burgeoning young adults, and to watch them, they change so much. We'll always look at our first picture that we take during orientation week and compare it with them in their graduation gowns, and it's tremendous, just their physical change and how they carry themselves. It's outstanding.
We'll have to bring some maybe back to a future board meeting and hear from them.
Oh, definitely.
That would be great.
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
So it's PV grads.
So Stacy, can you, just for the people who are watching and people in the audience, distinguish this program from the other program you mentioned, which is the TAPS program, and so people know the difference between the two?
TAP program is another vocational rehabilitation services program, and sometimes in a TAP program, those students can then carry on with TAP. I I believe till 26 in the state of Iowa, they can be followed. For an educational program, we can provide educational opportunities to 21. Our program is very intense for 9 months. For instance, with a TAP coordinator, they can provide additional services beyond, and they're really looking for the same outcome as we are. A successful employment placement, a transition into services that will assist them, whether it be living, learning, working. And TAP individuals, people receiving TAP services, do not have to have an IEP. Our program is IEP driven. So that is a huge difference. TAP individuals have any sort of barrier to employment. And Voc Rehab has a huge long list of qualifiers for that. They have different levels. They have 3 different levels of they go from a person who is in need basically to a person who is severely in need. Our interns have to qualify at that MSD, most severely disabled level, meaning that they have the strongest barriers to employment and they're in need of that program. Our interns cannot go back to TAP after they graduate because the funding streams get weird. TAP is in the community. We are in the community, but in one place. We were under the umbrella of Trinity. And it is a lot of time. That 25 hours is very unique. 25 hours of intensive training time in a work-based setting is very unique to Project Search. So I think that would be the biggest difference.
Now, do you also work with Davenport and other schools in the area as well? Because you mentioned that there's 12 spots, but right now only 7 are filled.
And that's an interesting point, Dr. Wagle, because with open enrollment, I know PV has felt it as much as North Scott has felt it, things can change. And if for instance, I believe Davenport last year had a PV student who knew they were going to move to the Davenport district, enroll ahead of time in their Project Search program. Open enrollment brings new questions. We're dealing with one right now, a prospective North Scott student possibly going to Clinton because of where he lives. And that kind of range up there by the Wapsie where Clinton County and Jackson County and Scott County kind of mix. So it's hit and miss.
And then let's say you have a student that is, you have a family and they have a student who is coming to Pleasant Valley, but they have, let's say, a special needs student that they've decided to homeschool. Is that person eligible then or not?
That would be an IPT decision. It would come down to meeting with, if they were homeschooling and they were being provided special education services through PD, that person, depending on their IEP team decision, could apply for Project Search, yes.
Great. Other questions?
Law.
Well, I think this is just absolutely fascinating. It's just another example of another program that we've been able to bring to our community for not just some kids, but all kids, and making sure that, our whole group of students, and depending on what their needs are, there's resources available for them. And I really want to thank you for the work you're doing, your dedication to this program, and the fact that you've been able to bring it to at least our district and have our students benefit from it, because it's clearly very important for them and really could help their future. And that's exactly what we're looking for.
Thank you. A little shout out to Mike Zimmer from years ago. He and I worked closely he worked with the administration at North Scott and at Bettendorf, and we all worked together to bring it to the Quad Cities. So,
thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much. There's no required motion there. Our next topic is Pleasant Valley High School 2024-2025 new course offerings, and we're going to have 2 new individuals to our district talk about this. The principal at the high school, Mr. Hawley, who's here, and Bernie as well, Russ Kern, who is our head of secondary education.
Thank
So,
you.
who wants to go first?
If you want to come on up to the podium.
You guys can meet in the middle.
Mr. Holly was super excited to come tonight. We have 3 new courses that we would like to propose to add for the 2024-25 school year. The first of which is Composition 1, also known as ENG 105. The prerequisite for ENG 105 would be successful completion of English 11. So it is a course that we are offering at PV to only our seniors. It is considered half of a unit. It's going to be a first semester course, but it also counts as an English credit and 3 credits of college credit as well. So this is a concurrent enrollment course. I'm going to let Mr. Holly talk a little bit about ENG 105. He did a lot of research in the region about different schools that had it and has spent some time with our English teachers as well. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to talk a little bit about what you found in your research.
So one of the things I realized when I came and we started to talk about English 105 was that this is one of the few schools that didn't have English 105. So I tried to reach out to different school districts. Some I knew, some that I thought were similar to us. So I reached out to the Iowa City School District, Cedar Rapids, Davenport schools, Bettendorf schools, Ankeny schools, and 2 others whose names I can't remember. And all of them had English 105 or its equivalent, depending on which community college they worked with, and suggested that it was one of their essentials, and they believed that was one of their value classes because it provided, much like you said, for all students, it provided that option to get some college credit for all students, not depending on what they were interested in studying. And so when we reached out to them, we thought this was something that showed real promise. We met with English teachers here who had lots of questions, but when presented with information that we had 2 teachers specifically and others who supported it say they want to be instructors of it. So we have those in our building and believe that if offered, this would be a course that would have many students take advantage of.
So what would this be? Is this replacing anything?
No, it's a different avenue.
Right now, currently, what are they taking if they weren't taking this?
They are either taking electives in senior year or they may be taking an AP class.
Okay.
And we believe that there will be certain areas where they will still take AP classes where they believe, and I don't remember exactly what those were. What were those that you talked about?
For students who might be pursuing a degree in communications or English or kind of liberal arts bachelor's degree, it may be beneficial for them to go ahead and continue to take the AP course. If they take the test and they achieve a certain score, they do also get college credit for that as well. So depending on their track, it could be something that they find more beneficial to take the AP route.
And this would also be that one of those entry courses that every student going into a state university in this state would have to have or take, and that would eliminate that requirement as they went in.
Other questions? Isn't there a course called college writing as well, or is that? So how would this and that be different?
That's a good question. Is it college writing or is it speech?
We offer speech.
Okay.
I believe we have a college writing.
Okay. And then on this, it says first semester course, second semester. So is it offered both semesters or?
We would plan to offer it both semesters.
Okay. As long as they've completed English 11, they could take it either first or second semester there after completing English 11.
And do we currently have teachers that can teach this course?
We do. So you have to have your master's in English to teach the course with our own teachers. And we do have a handful of teachers who have that. We also reached out to the teachers at our last department meeting and asked them to contact Mr. Holly and I if they would be interested. And so we did, we had a few responses. So we feel really great about our teachers teaching it here on campus.
It tends to pair well with speech, which is also a semester class.
Yeah, so they would do one semester of that and one semester. Okay.
So the next course, Mr. Paget works with our math department, and so he and Nikki Pitcher, our math lead at the high school, worked hard with this proposal. So the proposal is to add an AP pre-calculus course, which we currently do not have. Right now we have one honors level pre-calculus class that serves both the honors advanced algebra and trigonometry class, as well as the regular track algebra 2 class. And there tends to be, right now we're seeing a big gap in those math abilities. So the honors advanced algebra and trigonometry kids generally do not find it challenging enough, and then the algebra 2 students are having a hard time with the material. So this proposal is to add the new AP Pre-Calc class to serve those honor AAT students and the top Algebra 2 students if they would like the challenge. But in this course, students would cover all major pre-calc topics, as well as being introduced to some early calc topics as well.
And then they take the AP tests in May or whatever.
They do. They do. Yep, and if they take the course, they're expected to take the AP test in May.
And then with completion of this, then they could go on to take, let's say, AP Calc, for instance, and let's say they're taking it as a junior, then they could take AP Calc as a senior. They'd still take the AP test and get that's a college credit if they go to a school that honors it.
We also offer calculus at EICC as well.
Yeah.
So they could take that. If they didn't want to take our AP course, they could take that.
For doing this. Other questions from the board? Okay.
And the final course that we would like to propose is AP Microeconomics. We currently have AP Macroeconomics, and the way that we would offer this would be every other year. So it is a second semester only course, and we would offer it opposite of when we offer AP Macro. So I just want to make sure that that's clear that we're not offering this course every year. But this is a college level course that would introduce students to the principles of economics that apply to the functions of individual economic decision makers. So it helps to develop students' familiarity with the operation of product and factor markets, distributions of income, market failure, and the role of government in promoting greater efficiency and equity in the economy. And this too, obviously is an AP course, and so students who enroll would be expected to take the AP exam in May as well, and could get college credit. Questions about AP Micro? And Mr. Jones, I did forget to mention, he worked with our economics teachers on this proposal. They were really on it. I think we got this back in September. We're really anxious to be able to.
So we have the teachers to teach it.
We do.
And would it be the same teachers that would be teaching the macroeconomics as
I
well?
believe so, yeah.
So if a student wanted to, they could do both. They just have to do them.
Just
And they both are offered second semester. Even macro is offered a second semester.
I believe so, yes.
Other questions?
The one thing I would add, what's nice about this is, again, trying to look at opportunities for students. If you look at our 5-year history of the high school, it pulled some great data together to see how many students are taking concurrent courses and how many students are taking AP courses. And interestingly enough, when you look at this, this last school year, we had 28.43% taking concurrent and 26.76% taking an AP course. So again, it's just opportunities for kids, and they can select which ones they want to take, and it depends upon where they're going, what their options might want to be. And it's really providing, like I said, the opportunities.
Other questions? I think it's great that we continue to add to this. So now, if there's will there be a minimum amount of students that are needed in order to have the course?
There is with each course area, and exactly what that cap is or that minimum number, I would have to look into that, but I could find out for our next board meeting, which this will appear on there again. So I'd be happy to find that out.
Historically, when we hit around 12, we start looking at, is it worth offering or do you postpone it a semester? That gets to be pretty low than what we have available.
Well, being on the board for 10 years that I have been, one of the constant banter that I had with Mr. Zimmer when he was principal and then head of secondary education was to try and bring AP biology into.
Those are fighting words we heard.
Every year when we talk about new course offerings, Mr. Zimmer will look at me and say, "We're coming close, AP biology, haven't got it quite there, so I hope one of you guys can maybe bring it home."
Topic this fall, we did.
Good.
But we heard the same thing
Actually,
about,
bring it home to bring AP biology to Pleasant Valley.
the same thing about English 105, and yet the English people were really quite positive about it, so.
Okay.
Maybe next year.
Let's work on the AP biology then. Awesome. Okay, great. Well, there is no required motion on this. And now we're going to talk about something that I'm really excited about is the elementary playground project. And that is Mr. Seuss?
It is.
Yes, okay, Mr. Seuss, why don't you go ahead and talk to us a little bit about this that we've been kind of toying for a long time.
Yeah, so this has probably been an ongoing conversation for a number of years, me in this position as well. Just looking at how do we make sure we have safe playgrounds for all of our kids? And what does the base look like when we have a playground? Obviously, the conversation over the years has been how do we move towards a rubberized surface? A lot of that has been cost impacted by that. What does this look like? And then when you do this, how do you roll it out to make sure you can get it completed in a time frame that's during the summer? So a lot of factors gone into it. Right now, as you know, all of our playgrounds currently have pea gravel. For again, just not the ideal service from an inclusive standpoint of allowing all kids to have access to the equipment on the playgrounds. So, as I said, this has been a very strong conversation for us the last 2 years. And how do you roll this out and what does it look like from an economic standpoint? So tonight, what I would like to share with you after our last conversations is how we'd like to roll this out over the course of 2 summers. We have been working with a playground company over the last 1.5 years, and just looking at trying to do 6 schools in 1 summer is a pretty tall order to have them completed and having them coming in and getting it all done. So it's looking at a 2-phase project, which we'll explain tonight. When you look at the schools we are looking at right now, we're looking at Bridgeview, Pleasant View, and Riverdale Heights for this coming year, this coming summer. And the following summer, then we would look at Hopewell, Forest Grove, and Cody. You might ask why, first of all, why those 3 schools? I'll start with Bridgeview. Bridgeview currently has a preschool at the site. We do not have a true preschool playground at Bridgeview. And one thing with a preschool program, you need to have it fenced in. And so that would move us to compliance at a quicker rate at that school. And you can just stay on Bridgeview right now. But when you look at Riverdale Heights is probably built in 1996, still has the original equipment. So it's really the oldest playground probably that we really have in our current district. And there are some things that just need to be upgraded and fixed in terms of playground equipment at that site. So that clearly moved them in the front. The other one would be Pleasant View. Again, Pleasant View, looking at that one, I think it's a big project, but yet I think we can get it done with the way the layout of the land is there, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Hopewell and Forest Grove are clearly our newest sites, newest schools. They have the deepest pea gravel available, the newest equipment, so it makes sense to postpone them for the second year. And then Cody Elementary, again, kind of a bigger project because of the amount of space that they have. We will learn from the Bridgeview and Pleasant View program how to roll Cody out as well. So with this, I'll move over to here, kind of explain what we're thinking so you guys understand what we're trying to do. Number one, when you look at our current playgrounds, we have a lot of pea gravel. If you've been out there and there's a lot of space. So what we're trying to look at is what needs to be rubberized and what can also be turned into a grass play area for kids outside the rubberization area. So at Bridgeview, one of the things we're looking at here, this is currently an intermediate playground. What you can see is this is all pea gravel area right here. there's a huge drop off on this side. And one of the things with rubberized surface is you cannot have a drop off. It has to be contained in a flat surface. So by looking at this one here, the blue areas in all these projects would become the rubberized area. So in the intermediate spot here, we would keep the current equipment we have. This piece right here would become our PK program where we'd fence that in. So it'd be connected to this section as well. And then we'd also have a sidewalk that would come down from here into the preschool playground there. This one here, again, kind of a intermediate / primary playground area. Again, we cut this in half, and so we'd just be rubberizing this area right here. This would become into a grass area, and this is being grass, makes it easy to mow, and it gives the kids an area to run and play outside of the rubberized surface. This section down here, I'll get out of your way. Again, right now, this whole section is all pea gravel at the current time. Huge space, we don't need all that to be rubberized. So what we're looking at doing is you can see where we cut this off, and we would keep the current equipment there in that area that we have. This would become grass, but it would also become, if we ever moved Bridgeview to a 4-section building, which we talked about as a possibility, that'd be a place where we could grow that rubberized surface and add additional playground equipment there if we needed to in the future. So new equipment here, keeping that equipment and keeping the equipment here would take care of Bridgeview. I'll also talk about Bridgeview currently has 2 Gaga pits already on cement slabs. One is here and the other one is over here. So we don't have to worry about that, but in future projects I'll explain why that's important. So that is the Bridgeview project.
Question, Brian.
Yes.
How old is the equipment at Bridgeview?
You know, so we've gone through and had someone inspect all of that. I can't tell you the exact date on all of that, but that is why this one here is being replaced. Tony, this is probably what, last 10 years at most?
The 19 years old, because that was the first project I worked on when I became principal there. The green and tan stuff in the upper left.
This one here.
On the upper left, yeah.
Upper left.
Would be the west, the westernmost.
Okay.
And then the other stuff I believe is 12 years old. The fitness style equipment and climbing apparatus was called a DNI climber, and there's another like web climber that's down in the pea gravel there on the south side of the playground. That's about 12 years old. The oldest piece, and it's long-standing, I'd guess it to be somewhere between 30 and 40 years old, is the middle section that Brian explained is gonna be kind of cut in half there because of the size of the pea gravel. So fall zone comes into play with that, and the pea gravel doesn't need to be as widespread. So when you're looking at the cost difference with the rubberization, it's significantly more, so we can lessen that space and not add equipment, the same amount of equipment, or replace it.
So when you look at fall zone, there's 2 things. One would be the distance they're coming off an equipment, but also then the circle around. So much space outside of each piece, which creates the space that's needed. So when we give this to the architects or the companies that are gonna put a bid in for it, then they would know how much area they need to actually have around each piece of equipment.
Another piece, if I could just interject, the green space is huge. And so you'll find a lot of intermediate kids, and I think this is true just based on observations at our other elementaries as well. We have good green space at all of our locations, really, for just run and play and various games that they do, and that would be off to the east there at Bridgeview. There's a lot of, there's soccer field, football field, and 2 baseball fields currently used for kickball.
So Pleasant View, 2 really big areas. You have an intermediate playground, which is down here in the bottom section. You can see down here in the bottom part of the school. And then up on the top side, we have an intermediate playground as well. Again, lots of pea gravel in this area. What we're looking at in this project, because it actually goes, it's a big L shape, is where our current playground is. What we would do, again, looking at the age of the equipment, we would take out the equipment in this area and put new in. If you've been out to Pleasant View, there is a little, I'll call it a shade shelter right here. We'd be looking at moving that over to this area by the trees in a grassy area, which would allow us to put either 2 pieces of equipment or 1 long piece of equipment in that area. You can see where we'd land here, and then talking about Gaga pits, we'd probably put a cement slab in right here at this corner for a Gaga pit for kids in that to keep it from a stability area, nice and flat surface. On the top side up here, again, you can see where all the pea gravel is a Gaga pit way up on top. This equipment would stay, would be fine with that, and we'd move this Gaga pit up to that top corner. In that area, again, a cement slab poured for that. We met with Mr. Cotton as well in this building area and just kind of walked through how this could look. So he had feedback, and Megan Halverson had feedback at Bridgeview to make sure we're meeting all the needs of where kids like to run and play. And again, we have a big drop off here. So again, that would eliminate this area and turn it into a grass area. Much easier for putting the poured surface in. The last school, primary playground here, and up on top is their intermediate playground. When we say primary, typically K2, 3-6 is the intermediate. They also have, this is all gravel here, all gravel top. So we cut that in half here. This Gaga pit would move somewhere in this area, so again on a cement slab. We do the same thing with this Gaga pit, putting it in the back. Again, just new equipment, less area for rubberization, but still meeting the needs of all of our kids. We'd also look at putting in some ADA playground equipment as well for students at all of our schools. So there's access for everybody. Right now, you can kind of look at where we're at from a timeline. We are just currently, we've been researching this for about 1.5 years at least, and now it's looking at how do we make this move forward. So you can see in our board packet, there's kind of a timeline of supplemental materials. The timeline would be coming up here very quickly. In December, we put out what's called an RFQ, a request for qualifications. That's basically meaning we send this information to companies to say, do you believe you can do this? They then send the information back saying, yes, we can. Once we've selected those 3 or 4 companies that we're looking at having do this, then in January, we'd send out the request for proposal. And at that time, we'd start getting ideas, okay, what is this going to actually cost us? We have done a lot of research in terms of trying to figure out what we believe the cost would be at this time, but you can't really get a cost till you put it out for bid. When we put it out for bid, we think that hopefully the prices will come down lower than what the first initial glance was. But I would put these 3 schools would probably be close to $1 million when you look at just the rubberization and the equipment in and of itself. The second phase, the following summer, would probably be about another $1 million. So we're hoping worst case scenario, we're coming in around $2 million over the course of the 2 summers would be the ultimate goal. Our hope would be February 1st, we're ordering equipment. June 1st, we start getting the site work done. And then mid-July, installation would start. And by mid-August, we would have the installation completed and ready for the first day of school. Fingers crossed, all works out well, comes together. Again, I would love to do all 6, but we've talked to them and just, it doesn't sound like from a management standpoint, all 6 can get done by one contractor over the course of the summer. Looking at funding for this project, what does that look like? Multiple sources of trying to put this together. 2 years ago, we had 1% sales tax money. Previously, they used to be called make-up payments. So if there was more money spent than they had anticipated, they would give you what's called a make-up payment. When did that usually come to us, Mike? September?
November of each year.
Thank you. So in November, you'd get that one payment. Well, we don't receive that because it's on-time payment now. But we had that 2 years ago, and so we kept that money set aside for this project. We're looking at, we had money from a junior high project that we've saved some funds there from our baseball, softball fields. We'll just transition that over. We've been talking to our PTAs about donating whatever they can do over a 2-year span of time. We kind of set a goal of about $20,000 from our PTAs if they can manage that as well. We'll look at, remember when we built Forest Grove, we have the tennis courts and pickleball courts. Well, we paid for that up front, and then the city paid us back. So we're using some of those funds. We set that aside as well to put towards this project. We thought it was a good way to transition that money. We'll look at writing SCRA grants, other grants that we can do, whatever we can do to help offset this expense. If there's any donations that people would love to make, we take donations for that as well. But big project, but I think one that's due. It's best for our kids in just getting rid of the pea gravel, and probably will offset some of the athletic shoe companies in the area because it wears out the shoes. But yes, yeah. So really tonight, it's just the motion would be to say, hey, keep moving forward with this. That's really what we're looking forward to for tonight. And then we'll go to the RFQs, see if it's possible, put it out for bid, see if it's possible, and can we get a timeline put in place and get it moving forward. Any questions you have?
I have a few questions. What are they gonna do with all that pea gravel? I didn't know if there's other companies that would wanna purchase it for.
Yes.
We could sell it?
So one thing we've talked about is, your concrete companies all need pea gravel as well. A lot of times they put that in there, so we might reach out to them. Basically what you do is you have a big machine comes in and just vacuums it up out of there. And then we will take it somewhere. Hopefully, we believe there'll be a market, hopefully, that we can sell,
Might be able to
recoup some money. Yeah.
versus just giving it away. I know some of my stuff I have to just be like, please take it, I don't care. Take it out of my hand. The second question was, in December, if we make this motion tonight to move forward with the project, can we look at December chart or something where we have comparisons of the schools and their needs and the years that their playground equipment has been in, and their playground equipment in proportion with the number of sections per grade, just to make sure we are picking the 3 schools that have the greatest need. I know all schools have a need for this, but I have had parents from Cody reach out to me because there's broken equipment at Cody and there's railroad ties that are uneven, making it unsafe to even access the playground for some students. And there's stairs that are worn and sharp, and so there's concerns there too. I don't know how those concerns compare to other schools because we don't have a side-by-side comparison, and I want to make sure that we have a way to see that. Obviously, Forest Grove and Hopewell are the easy outliers, but there's 4 schools that have a lot, and Cody's the oldest school in the district, and I'm not sure when their equipment was put in. I believe the PTA said they purchased one piece of equipment in 2016, but the PTA paid for that themselves, and so I just want to make sure that we balance that out and look at it, and we all feel comfortable that we're, I know everyone's going to get it, but that we find the 3 schools that most need it and makes sense with this project.
And we'll try to find as much as we can on playgrounds, but I can't guarantee the date, but we'll look back and see what we can find.
Thank you.
Or even possibly if they can do 4 instead of just 3 that first year, and then do 2 the following, if we wanted to try that as well as a possibility.
Anytime we do a bid, we can always put an alternative in there and see how they come back with the alternative bid. Or if they say, yes, we can do 4 in 1 year, then that's possible. The funding side of it.
Right, and or if there's a way even to address pieces of it, I think it's a complex thing as far as construction goes, if, doing both at once or doing part of something, or, I don't know, I just would feel good about being able to say to parents that have concerns that, yes, we looked at side-by-side comparison of everyone's needs, and this is kind of where it came down, and this is how we came to this decision.
Questions? Other questions from the board? I have a few. So for the RFQ, I was gonna ask you, can we do an RFQ for all of the schools, and then so that we can lock in a price, and if it's done over 2 years? Or do we have to do an RFQ for just the ones that we want to do this year, and then the following year, the ones that we do? Because if you tell them we want to do all of our elementary schools, they might give you a better deal. Correct. So I'm just wanting to make sure that we get the most bang out of our buck by letting them know that this is our plan to do all of them, and can we get a quote for all of them, because that can be cheaper ultimately.
And that's exactly the conversation we had previously as well about, we're doing this in a 2-year span of time, so give us the pricing of what it would look like.
Then, since we're getting rid of all the pea gravel, and there's gonna be some areas that's gonna be lawn that you mentioned. How is that gonna impact our maintenance Will that be an issue for them?
The main issue in Leland Zinc was part of our conversations is making sure you can get a lawnmower into that area very easily. And so it's not, you're trying to bring a wide deck in and you have a small area to get into. So that would not be an issue. And most of these areas would be typically mowed by our custodians of the building, not our large bat wings that we send around the district.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that Leland was involved in some of that.
He was.
decision
He's
making.
been in from step one because
Okay.
it's his maintenance and grounds.
Yeah.
He's there.
Then-
That outreach, yeah.
The final thing, and you can look into this with regards to funding, is in these newer areas that you've talked about, are we making sure that there is, and you mentioned this a little bit, about enough sun shading? Because as you know, in somebody's lifetime, their largest exposure to sun is actually when they're younger. When they're younger, because they're outside a lot. So we want to make sure that just reduce exposure with UV and the long-term implications that can have from a health standpoint, to make sure that we have enough sun safety areas in our playgrounds so that we can minimize long-term exposure of UV rays for our kids. So will that be taken into account when we do our RFQ to make sure that there's enough sunshade type places for students? And I do know that there are, and I don't know if they're still available, but there are grants you can apply for as long as you have a certain percentage of sunshade areas in your playgrounds. And maybe we can explore that to try and get some extra money as well.
And are you saying in terms of the equipment we're putting in, or in terms of like the little pavilions that we have?
I'm talking about both, actually. Like in the new equipment, is some of the new equipment sort of meeting some of the sun safety requirements that we would like to have in our district and for our kids, to just minimize the amount of sun exposure. So if we can look at that, and like I said, I think that there are some grants available that will give you money towards putting in sun safety or sun safety type. Those are really all the questions I had. Okay, if everybody kind of likes what we've talked about and wants to continue to work through these projects on our elementary school playground projects, then I will take a motion.
I move the board authorize the district to move forward with the request for qualifications and requests for proposals for the elementary playground project.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the board authorize the district to move forward with the request for qualifications and request for proposals for the elementary playground project. Roll call, please, Ms. Bowman.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman? Yes. Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Conkle?
Yes.
Dr. Wagley?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Wheeler?
Yes.
Okay, our next order of business is a couple of Mr. Klingensmith's items. 2023-2024 SBRC request for modified supplemental amount MSA for open enrollment out.
Yes, we're going to be asking the board tonight to approve a couple of requests to the SBRC standing for School Budget Review Committee in this case, for what's called modified supplemental amount. Modified supplemental amount is basically the equivalent of additional spending authority. Spending authority is what in Iowa school finance, spending authority is the limit on how much each district in Iowa is allowed to spend out of their general fund is their total spending authority. So the general rule of thumb in Iowa school finance is you almost never want to turn down a request to get additional spending authority. So the first agenda item here would be requesting modified supplemental amount for open enrollment out. This year, we have 38 resident students in the district who are open enrolled out, who were not on the previous year's certified enrollment. So they would have moved into the district last year after certified enrollment, after October 1st. So we are not getting funding through the state foundation formula for those students. So that's why the state allows districts to request modified supplemental amount or additional spending authority for those students. So if you multiply 38 students times the state per pupil cost of $7,413, plus we would also get $357.80 for those 38 students in teacher leadership funding. So the total amount that we can request to the SBRC for modified supplemental amount for next year would be $295,290. So, yeah, that's a pretty substantial amount. I would recommend that the board do this request for open enrollment out. Now, this is something we haven't gotten in past years, and the reason for that is you can only get this if it exceeds your money that you get from on-time funding if you have increased enrollment in the district. Well, our certified enrollment for this year actually is down about 18 kids. We're serving about 50 more kids in the district this year, but our certified enrollment is down 18 kids. So we will not be getting any on-time funding this year, as opposed to past years when we often have gotten on-time funding. So while we won't get the on-time funding for increased enrollment, that does allow us to request this modified supplemental amount for open enrollment out. So that is the first of the two requests. I'll take any questions if anybody has any questions on this. This did need to be, per the state, this needs to be two separate motions, this request and the request on the next agenda item.
So if there aren't any questions regarding the SBRC request for modified supplemental amount for open enrollment out, I will take a motion. And again, this is just to allow us to have a additional spending authority.
I move that the district's administration is authorized to submit a request to the School Budget Review Committee for a modified supplemental amount of $295,290 or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review for open enrolled out students who are not included in the district's previous year's certified enrollment count.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Mr. Ayers, that the district's administration is authorized to submit a request to the School Budget Review Committee for a modified supplemental amount of $295,290 or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review for open enrolled out students who were not included in the district's previous year certified enrollment count. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wondrich?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Wheeler?
Yes.
Okay, and then the second part to that, which Mr. Klingensmith alluded to, was sort of a similar type of a situation, but with our limited English proficient instruction, or LEP, beyond 5 years.
Yes, this is quite similar. It's also making a request to the School Budget Review Committee for modified supplemental amount, additional spending authority for students that we have in the district who have been receiving instruction for limited English proficiency for at least 5 years. We have 7 students in the district who are in that situation where they've been receiving those services for at least 5 years. So again, multiplying the 7 students times the weightings that you get related to that, which is a 0.21 weighting for intermediate services, times the $7,733 district cost per pupil amount, would allow us to request additional modified supplemental amount of $11,367 for this. So again, a similar request to the other one. This one just related to limited English proficiency services.
Are there any questions? If not, I will take a motion.
I move that the district's administration is authorized to submit a request to the School Budget Review Committee for a modified supplemental amount of $11,367 or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review related to English language learning program for students who have exceeded 5 years of waiting that are included on the fall 2023 certified enrollment headcount.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Brockman, second by Mr. Ayers, to move the district's, or so that the district's administration is authorized to submit a request to the School Budget Review Committee for a modified supplemental amount of $11,361 or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review related to the English language learning program for students who have exceeded 5 years of waiting that are included in the fall 2023 certified enrollment headcount. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Blackman? Yes. Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Ms. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wagley?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Wheeler? Yes.
And finally, our October monthly financial statements, Mr. Klingensmith.
All right.
Any red flags today?
No, I was just gonna say, nothing unexpected that I could see on the October monthly financials. Everything appears to be coming in after 4 months of our fiscal year where I would expect it to be at this point in the year. So unless any of you have any questions, I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, just need a motion.
My nutrition fund seems to be doing fairly well again. Was that totally expected for you? On the nutrition fund?
Yeah, you can see food sales are up 3.2% over the previous year, so that is, of course, helping things in the nutrition fund. Food purchases up 2.4%, so food purchases up a little bit smaller amount than food sales, which is good because with inflation, there could be some concern about that. But so far, through October anyway, things are looking pretty good there.
Remember, as we move into our projects, junior high projects, she'll be helping with purchasing tables. High school will need additional tables and equipment there as well as part of that project, so they always help us with some of those expenses moving forward.
Any other questions or comments on the October monthly financial statements? If not, I will take a motion.
I move the board accept the monthly financial report for October 2023 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the board accept the monthly financial reports for October 2023 as presented. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Ms. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Canwisher?
Yes.
Ms. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wagley? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Wheeler?
Okay, future dates, on Monday, December 18th, is our next Board of Education meeting. We only have one in December, that's how it has always been, and it is Monday, December 18th. And this one starts at 5:30, not 6 p.m., because there is a high school concert that evening as well. So we always like to try and start a little bit earlier so people who want to go to that concert can get there. In addition, our one after the New Year is going to be Monday, January 8th, and that's at 6 p.m. And then, especially for our new board members, there is an IASB onboarding regional workshop, and that's at Macokota High School. And if you're interested in attending that, let Ms. Damon know, and she can try and get you registered. If you look in your board packet, there are other areas where they're offering these as well. So if that date doesn't work for you, you wanted to drive to some of the other places where you can do the onboarding, that's certainly available to you as well. So is there anything else for the good of the order?